You've been told your whole life that hard work is the key to success, that if you grind, sacrifice, and stay humble, one day the world will reward you. But what if this is a grand deception? What if those who rise to power don't work the hardest, but the smartest, the coldest, the most strategic? Today, we uncovered the lie. Machiavelli warned us long ago hard work alone is for peasants. Power, my friend, obeys a different master. You've heard the phrase 1,000 times. Hard work pays off. It echoes in schools, in family dinners, in corporate halls. It's stitched into national mottos and corporate slogans. But the question is, who actually benefits when you believe that? Let us go back to the courts of Renaissance rulers. Picture this: a prince ruling over a city, state, surrounded by nobles, soldiers, and the common folk. His greatest fear? Rebellion, chaos, the loss of his throne. So what does he do? He doesn't just build walls or hire more guards. No, he builds a belief. He whispers a simple lie into the ears of the masses. Work hard, be loyal, and your time will come. This isn't guidance. It's obedience disguised as hope. When a ruler wants peace, he does not merely police the streets. He captures the minds. And the greatest weapon for that is the doctrine of labor. Because when people believe their suffering has meaning, when they think their toil is the path to glory, they don't revolt, they sweat harder. They police themselves. They compete with one another in self-sacrifice while the prince rests in silk sheets. Machiavelli understood this profoundly. In The Prince, he does not praise virtue for virtue's sake. He praises whatever maintains order and control. And hard work, it's the most elegant form of control ever devised. A ruler doesn't need to crack whips or hang dissenters when he can simply convince the population that struggle is noble, that poverty is temporary, that one day the grind will pay off, but only if they stay humble and obedient. Now look at the modern world. It has changed in technology but not in psychology. Today, instead of a prince, we have CEOs. Instead of nobles, we have influencers and executives. But the system remains. You wake up early, you grind, you sacrifice, and you believe that, eventually, someone will notice. That the promotion, the respect, the fortune will come because you earned it. But what if I told you, it was never designed to work that way? The truth is this: those who benefit from your belief in hard work are rarely working hard themselves. They sit at the top and encourage you to keep going. They sell you productivity books. They hand out employee of the month certificates. They post motivational quotes. Why? Because a motivated worker is a manageable one. Because someone who believes in the system won't question why they're always at the bottom. In a Machiavellian world, the smartest rulers aren't the ones who conquer by force. They're the ones who convince their subjects to enslave themselves. And nothing does that better than the myth of hard work. It makes you feel morally superior while you exhaust yourself in service of someone else's game. Think of it like this: a lion doesn't ask the gazelle to work harder. He just runs faster and takes what he wants. But in society, the gazelles are trained to believe that if they just keep running, someday the lion will reward them. Absurd, isn't it? And yet, that's how most people live their lives. Running endlessly, striving, hoping, never realizing that the finish line was never meant for them. The powerful know this. They've always known. It's why emperors funded churches and temples that taught humility and patience. It's why modern institutions reward the appearance of effort more than actual results. Because when people are busy proving their worth, they're too distracted to realize the game is rigged. Hard work, in this sense, becomes the perfect trap. It feels good. It gives life a purpose. And yet, it keeps you precisely where the powerful want you underneath them. Because the more you believe that your labor will lead to power, the less you focus on the things that actually bring power, like strategy, alliances, timing, and leverage. And so you keep working. You stay loyal. You follow the rules. And the people who benefit from that, they thank you. They promote the myth. They give you just enough to keep the engine running. But what they will never do. There is a dangerous illusion in this world that the man who works the longest hours, who wakes before the sun and bleeds for his dreams, will one day inherit the throne. It is an illusion fed to you by those who already sit on it, because in truth, the throne does not go to the exhausted. It goes to the calculating. Power is not earned by the sweat of your brow. It is seized by the sharpness of your mind. Machiavelli observed the brutal realities of politics, where the battlefield was not the farm, nor the factory, nor the cubicle, but the court. And in the court, no one rose through effort alone. They rose through maneuvering. They whispered in the right ears. They betrayed when it was convenient. They aligned themselves not with morality, but with timing. The most powerful men Machiavelli studied were not noble, and they were certainly not laborers. They were serpents in silk. You see, power does not reward effort. It rewards effect. You can swing a sword 1,000 times and still be defeated by the man who strikes once with precision. That's the difference between labor and strategy. Labor is predictable. Strategy is dangerous. And in a world built on hierarchies, the dangerous man, not the dutiful one, rises. Now ask yourself this, in your own life, have you ever watched someone less talented, less hardworking, rise above you? Have you seen them charm the right people, play the right role, say the right thing at the right time? And did it infuriate you? You thought it was unfair. But to Machiavelli, it was inevitable, because power never obeyed fairness. It obeys results, and results belong to those who understand people, politics, and perception. The hardworking man believes life is a ledger, that each hour of sacrifice is a deposit that will one day yield fortune. But the strategic man knows better. He watches. He waits. He understands the unspoken laws, the kind not written in company handbooks or moral codes. He knows when to flatter and when to vanish. He knows when to take credit and when to let others believe they've won, just long enough to lower their guard. And while the hardworking man toils, the strategic man moves quietly behind the curtain. That's why Machiavelli warned against relying solely on virtue. He said a prince must know how to be good, but more importantly, he must know how not to be good when the situation demands it. Because to rise in this world, you cannot be predictable. You cannot be purely honest. You must be adaptable. You must learn when to mask your intentions and when to bare your teeth. The tragedy is that most people are never taught this. They're told to focus on their craft, to be the best worker, the best team player, the most reliable cog in the machine. But what they are not taught is how to read people, how to gather influence, how to negotiate power in silence. And so, year after year, they are passed over by those who seem to glide effortlessly into positions of control, not because they worked harder, but because they understood the game. Imagine two men. One is a craftsman, spending 10 years perfecting his trade. The other learns just enough to appear competent, but spends his time building alliances, studying power dynamics, and positioning himself for opportunity. When the moment comes, when the room is filled with decision makers and the air is ripe for movement, it's the second man who speaks, who is remembered, who is elevated. The first man keeps working, confused as to why no one sees his effort. This is what Machiavelli knew. Power is not something you earn like a wage. It's something you take, something you construct piece by piece through silence, deception, timing, and force. And those who cling to the belief that effort alone will lift them, who believe that virtue guarantees victory, they become pawns, trapped in the illusion, useful to others, forgotten by history. Because in the end, the world belongs not to those who work the hardest one. They call it a meritocracy, a system where talent rises, where brilliance is recognized, where hard work is rewarded with glory. But tell me, when you look around, do you really see the best at the top, the wisest, the kindest, or do you see something else? You see the connection, the cunning, the ones who knew how to be seen, not just how to be useful. That is not meritocracy, that is performance. And it is precisely the kind of illusion Machiavelli would call beautiful, a lie that maintains order without the need for chains. The idea of meritocracy is seductive. It promises fairness. It tells the young man from nothing that he can have everything if he just works hard enough. It tells the woman who stays late, who never complains, who follows every rule, that she is on the path to success. And when she is overlooked, when he is passed over, the system doesn't get blamed. They do. You didn't try hard enough. You didn't want it badly enough. It turns failure into personal guilt rather than systemic reality. This is the brilliance of the illusion. It convinces the masses to police themselves, to compete against one another in a game where the rules are unwritten and the goalposts always move. The powerful don't need to suppress you. They don't need to lie to you directly. They simply let you believe in the myth. That success is a matter of effort. And watch as you exhaust yourself for rewards that have already been assigned elsewhere. Machiavelli understood the mind of the prince. He knew that to rule well, you must keep your subjects hopeful, not truly empowered, but hopeful. Hope keeps men quiet. Hope keeps them working. Hope keeps them believing that obedience will lead to reward. But the prince knows the real rewards are not given out for virtue. They are traded for loyalty, for usefulness, for silence. Look at any empire. The most loyal are rarely the most skilled. They are the most strategically placed. They are the ones who align their interests with the rulers, who serve as instruments of control, not just examples of excellence. And so it is today, in the boardroom, in the political arena, in academia, even in art. It is not always the best who rise. It is the safest, the most convenient, the most willing to play the game. But to keep the game going, the people must believe it's fair. That's why the myth of meritocracy is so important. Without it, the whole structure trembles. If the hardworking man realizes that effort alone won't protect him, what happens? He stops trying. He starts questioning. He becomes unpredictable, and nothing is more dangerous to a system of power than unpredictability from below. So the myth is reinforced through stories, through education, through speeches and slogans. Think of the tales we tell children: the underdog who made it, the rags to riches story, the hero who rose through sheer determination. These are not just stories. They are scripts written to keep the population dreaming, believing, complying. And when someone finally breaks through, when one man out of a million rises from the gutter to the palace, he is paraded as proof that the system works. But he is not proof. He is the exception used to maintain the rule. Because for everyone who makes it, there are 1,000 who don't. Not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked access. They lacked timing. They lacked the ability or the willingness to bend the rules, to play the darker game beneath the surface. Meritocracy pretends that life is a race where everyone starts at the same line. But Machiavelli knew better. He saw that some begin with gold in their hands, while others start chained. And yet, the system tells them all run. When some fall, it whispers, "You should have trained harder." And the ones in front smile, not because they ran faster, but because they were never burdened in the first place. This is the architecture of control. A world where the talented toil in frustration, while the mediocre soar on invisible wings. A world where you are told the system is just, so you never look closely enough to see the strings that move it. Where the myth of fairness is more important than actual fairness. Because the myth keeps you in line, keeps you believing, keeps you useful. In a world ruled by appearances, perception is the true throne. You may be strong, you may be skilled, you may even be brilliant. But if the world does not perceive you as such, you are invisible. And if the world fears you, respects you, or admires you, then you are already powerful, regardless of whether you've done anything at all. This is the law Machiavelli saw so clearly. The man who understands influence and perception bends the world to his will. The man who merely works hard is ruled by it. Influence is not built in workshops. It is sculpted in conversation, in silence, in posture. It is forged in the stories others tell about you, whether or not they are true. In truth, truth itself becomes secondary. It is not what is that matters, but what is believed. The perception of strength is often more valuable than strength itself. This is why the lion, who is feared, commands more than the ox, who labors. Both are powerful, but only one is seen as untouchable. You may have noticed this in your own life. That one person in the office who always seems to rise, even though they produce less than you. They speak less, but when they do, people listen. Why? Because they have shaped how they are seen. Their image does the work. Their reputation walks ahead of them like a shadow. People move around them, accommodate them, defer to them. Not because of what they've done, but because of what they appear to be. Machiavelli understood that power often lies not in reality, but in theater. The prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, even if he is none of those things, because the masses do not examine a ruler's soul. They examine his gestures, his words, his image, and they obey not truth, but spectacle. A prince who tries to rule by effort alone, by noble intentions and ceaseless labor, is devoured by wolves wearing crowns. So the lesson is brutal labor is silent, but perception speaks, and perception spreads. People carry it like fire. They will share your name, your image, your story, if you give them the right version to carry. If you control that narrative, you control your destiny. But if you ignore it, if you toil behind closed doors, thinking effort alone will elevate you, you will die unknown, useful, reliable, replaceable. Influence, on the other hand, is magnetic. It draws opportunities. It attracts allies, deters enemies, opens doors that no amount of labor could ever force open. It is built not just on what you say, but how you make others feel. Do they feel inspired in your presence? Afraid? Or wide? Curious? Influence is about effect, not intention. It's about emotional residue. If people leave your presence unchanged, you have failed. If they leave altered, with new thoughts, new feelings, new loyalties, you have succeeded. Consider this: in every kingdom, there are hundreds of competent men, hundreds of men who can read, write, lead. But there is only one king, and he is rarely the best worker among them. He is simply the most perceived to be worthy. His crown is a symbol, not of effort, but of consensus. Influence, you see, is about consensus. If enough people believe in your power becomes real. And how do you shape perception? Through suggestions, through restraint, through timing, through silence more than speech, through mystery more than explanation. The man who reveals everything is dismissed. The man who withholds, who hints, who intrigues, he becomes a figure of power, a symbol, because people project onto mystery. They fill in the blanks with their own admiration, fear, or envy, and that projection becomes your armor. But here is the cruel trick: the man who slaves in obscurity, who sacrifices in private, who follows every rule, is often invisible to history. He may have changed the world with his hands, but history remembers the face, the voice, the symbol that stood above the labor. It remembers the influencer, not the builder, the one who commanded perception, not the one who obeyed it. So while the world praises hard work on its surface, it bows to influence beneath it. While it tells you to stay humble, it secretly rewards spectacle. While it says, earn respect, it actually responds to presence, aura, momentum. And those who grasp this, those who understand how to sculpt how they are seen, rise like smoke over fire, unburned by the toil below them, untouched by the struggle they never needed to engage in directly. So now you see it, laid bare beneath the illusion. The noble lie that hard work alone leads to power, shattered like stained glass under truth's weight. You were never meant to win this game by effort alone. The rules were never written to reward virtue, only obedience. The system doesn't want you to see this, because once you do, you stop being useful and start being dangerous. Machiavelli didn't tell you to be lazy. He warned you not to be naive. He knew that the path to power is not paved with sweat, but with strategy. Not with labor, but with leverage. In a world governed by perception, ruled by influence, and maintained by illusions, the ones who rise are not the ones who bleed, but the ones who watch others bleed for them. So ask yourself, have you been working hard, or have you been playing blind? Have you been building your strength, or building someone else's empire? Because the ones at the top, they don't want you to wake up. They want you clocking in, keeping quiet, and believing that your time will come if you just wait long enough. But your time will not come. Not unless you take it. Not unless you stop worshipping effort and start understanding power. Machiavelli left the map. The rest is yours to follow or ignore. Just remember, lions are feared, foxes are respected, but oxen are eaten.